Hello, today I'm going to show you how to make Cheap Jack stew. It will be cooked on a wood burner, so the first thing that I've got to do is get the wood burner going. It's been going all night, it's kept the house warm, but it's just one of those things. If you've got a wood burner in the morning, you clean the ashes and you get it going, stoke it up, as my grandfather used to call it. I think it's probably still used, that term, stoke it up. But yeah, I've got embers there left from last night. It's still warm. All the walls surrounding it are warm. It's radiating heat. It's just that all the wood has been burnt and I've just got hot embers and ash left. And I filled it up at about 11:30 to the brim max, so it's done very well on a load of logs. Got us through the whole night, and indeed the house is warm. But yeah, it's left me with that fact. I've had to clean it out and get it ready, and I'll just let you have a quick little look at that. Yeah, as you can see in there, I've got some embers glowing. You can see the air vents and also the vents that go down to the ashtray. I've just been and emptied the ash on the garden. I do use it as a fertiliser, and I've got some stuff ready to start loading it up. But at the end of the day, you do have to clean it out, and this is the inconvenient part of owning a wood burner. I actually like doing the job. It's something my grandfather did, and it just feels that it's part of that morning routine. I like it. Anyway, as you can see, I've just opened it up. I've got to get those embers now. This is really hot to the touch, you know what I mean? And these walls are really warm, radiating heat. And that's a good thing about a wood burner. As I said, it gives good heat. You can't beat it. But anyway, getting back to this, I've got to now get those embers going into a real fire again. So to get it going, I've got loads of bark and leftovers from when I had wood delivered. I bagged it all up, swept it off the road, and nothing's gone to waste. But that is great for getting the fire going again first thing in the morning. Right, so I've got the fire going, and with wood burners, it's not instantaneous cooking heat. I'm going to have to wait now for this to get to a temperature I can use, and that's going to be about an hour from now. Yeah, so as I've mentioned before, my grandparents cooked majority of everything on a wood fire, or wood burner shall I say, and a Rayburn. But the thing is, I always remember my grandfather used to get up at least an hour, hour and a half before everybody else. It was just the routine. And when my grandmother used to come down, there would be fire ready for her to get breakfast, and the water would be boiling, and a cup of coffee or a cup of tea, well, a cup of tea back then, would be on the go, getting ready. Yeah, that tree I cut down due to the storms we had, a lot of that wood was what you call standing dead. It stood upright, the tree is, but in all intents and purposes it's been dead for a lot of years, and it's dry. And I'll just quickly show you that. There you can see, here's a piece here, and it's dry. It's dry throughout, you know. And like I said, I've got pieces everywhere of it that are dry. There's a few pieces like this one here that can't be used. When it comes to that's still from the base. That's going to have to wait. So's that. That's dry throughout. So's that. There's another one. See, dry throughout, and you get a nice hollow ring to it. So what we're going to be cooking on the wood burner is Cheap Jack stew. It's basically a vegetable stew. Any vegetables, whether it be frozen or vegetables that you haven't used up and you're just going to get rid of, I mean, obviously make sure everything's in date and as it should be, because obviously you want to look after yourself. But any vegetables that you have kicking around the house, potatoes, carrots, swede, you know, anything frozen as well that's within date, just put it all into a stock, and I will show you all this, and you end up with what we call Cheap Jack stew. and you season it as you cook it, and you eat it with bread and butter or a nice crusty bread. And it's the cheapest meal that you could possibly knock together on a wood burner, and indeed, you know, it's wholesome, it's nice, and it's, well, cheap. So I will take you along and I'll show you how I do it. Right then, as you can see, I'm getting the wood burner up to temperature. I've got a kettle on which I'm boiling some water at the moment. I do have to say this wood burner isn't designed for cooking on. It's just a standard wood burner with a flat top, flat surface, and it's in no way designed to do what I'm doing with it. With that being said, I have to state this, and you have to, for safety reasons all the way round, and for the purposes of cooking. If you want to cook on a log burner, go and get one that's been designed for that purpose, which is rated for that purpose, and which has the overall ability to do it in a safe manner. I'm just doing this for entertainment purposes, so from that point of view, what I do, don't copy. I'm just doing it because this is what I do. So yeah, with that being said and covered, as you can see, the wood burner's roaring. I'm going to bring the temperature back, wait for that water to boil, and while I'm doing that, I'll quickly show you what I'm doing with the vegetables. Right then, I might not be looking my best. I'm a bit tired, didn't sleep, but that's what you get when you have kids when you're in your 50s. Most of my mates, or shall we say school year group, I think they're probably, like I keep alluding to, they're on the golf course or they're sitting on the sun lounger on some beach in the Algarve, while I'm here bringing up two young kids. Thoroughly love it, but it is hard work, and hence you do tend to look a little bit older because in the morning you've probably not slept the best sleep. Right, I've got a muffin and a cup of coffee on the go. That's not going to be cooked, obviously. That's for my own consumption now, because as you've just heard, I am knackered. But yeah, that's just to get me going now. But anyway, I've got a bag of potatoes. They've been in the bottom of the cupboard for a little bit longer than they should be. They never got used. They're still good, and I'll show you that. I got some carrots, 2 packs. Now, this is how silly things are these days, that you can buy these packs of, well, they call them a stew pack, and the wife always buys them because you can get the Swedes and parsnips, and it's cheaper than buying the items individually. So you get a stew pack, but quite often, if you're not using all the ingredients, you do get some that's left over. But as you can see, they're not going to go to waste. These mushrooms, a few were had, but obviously there's no meals planned for these mushrooms, and rather than let them go to waste, like I said, it's all going to be incorporated in this recipe that we call Cheap Jack Stew. Now, all I've got is some cheap gravy and a stock. These are things that you probably would have kicking around in your cupboard anyway. Like I said, all this is cheap ingredients and stuff that, you know, a majority of people may have probably kicking around. And I'm not suggesting you go and buy the top range, you know, items. This is all just aimed at showing you, if you've got stuff kicking around, you can put it into a vessel and cook, and indeed what you're doing is you're just trying to keep, you know, produce a cheap meal basically. But yeah, I've got some gravy and I've got some stock cubes there. So basically I'll just quickly show you what I'm talking about with the vegetables. Now you can see this potato here, it's perfectly okay. It's obviously, you have to look, make sure it is in date. There's no green, dark, mouldy patches or anything like that. But this potato's just sprouted in here. So what I'll do is I'll cut that off and take it a little bit further than just the skin, just to get rid of the where it joins into the potato. And that potato will be fine. These onions here, take the outer casing off, they'll be fine. And these carrots, I'll just skin them, top and tail, dice them, they'll be fine. And these mushrooms, they're good. They're all, well usable. I'll just peel them and put them in whole. And, that'll all be good. Right, I feel a lot better now. I've had the muffin and a bit of coffee, although I do need to drink that up to really kickstart the day. But yeah, incidentally, when I was away with the Americans, muffins and things like that were actually on part of the breakfast menu. They were there available, and I got into the habit of doing that. So yeah, muffin for breakfast. Possibly not something a lot of English people think about, but when I was away with the Americans, like you say, that was a thing. So, and I got into it actually. But anyway, getting back to this, this is the vessel I'm going to be cooking with. As you can see, it's a metal one, and it comes from a different cooking device. So all I'm saying here is, for safety reasons, please, always make sure you're using appropriate items that you can cook in. And like I said, whatever I'm doing here, I'm not suggesting you follow what I'm doing. I'm just showing you what I'm doing. But whatever you do, always think safety first, and whether it's possible to do what you're doing with those particular items. But this is the item I'm going to be using. Right then, I'll put my glasses back on because I've got a knife and I'm doing the potatoes. Safety first, guys, eh? Right, as you can see, this one here has got, like I said, in here growing out. Now, I do know a lot of people will throw potatoes out like that. That's possibly, the wasteful society that we live in. But, if you just cut it off like that, you can see inside the potato there is no cause for alarm. That is still good. Obviously, if they get out of hand, you don't want to use it, or you get green or parts of the potato, or indeed black and damaged. And if it really doesn't look right and it's slimy, mouldy and things like that, you throw it. That's just naturally a given. But just a few ears, like I said, you got there, which I will cut off on this one, you end up with a perfectly serviceable, good potato. But yeah, it's just basically, then peel these. I will not actually be too overcautious about how much potato I'm leaving. I do know some people, even to this day, which will keep potato peelings if they've cut them roughly, and they will fry those up. I mean, but back in the day, our grandparents' day, they were resourceful with the ingredients they had. And they had to be, because obviously they didn't have ready access to the supermarkets and indeed the funds to do, basically just pop out and get what they want when they wanted it. So they were resourceful with their items that they had. Yeah, you can see I've cut just enough potatoes in sizes that I want to stew. Too big, and obviously you've got to let it simmer a lot longer. Too small, there's always a danger it'll go to mush. But you will have to, because we're cooking with a wood burner, a lot of this is going to be hit or miss, and it'll be down to you to keep your eye on it and cook it to how you want it to consume it. Right, the wood burner is up to temperature. Now, I've throttled it right back now, and I'm just going to let that heat radiate now. You can hear the kettle's actually boiling. And see the steam. Obviously, I've got the spout, so the steam's coming up there and not building up in underneath there. But I don't need that just yet. As you can see, I'm a bit slow. I've still got the rest of this to do. These potatoes here, I won't be needing those. They're done. I should keep those for something else. Right, so I've done what I've done with the carrots, but like I said, I found a couple that I'm not happy with, and they've stayed out. And the mushrooms have all been peeled. I've peeled the skin off the top, and I've cut it in half and took the actual stalk out. So they've been done. These have been diced, and like I said, it's got onions, potatoes, carrots and mushrooms. Like I said, cheap jack stew, I'm using up what I have here. Now I'm going to put a bit of salt in to season, but I'm pretty sure these ingredients would possibly have enough salt in them anyway. If you are being health conscious, I'm putting a little bit of salt in just to season. I'm not talking stupid amounts, just a small bit, just for personal taste. But yeah, you can pretty much see or get the measure of what I've done there now. Yeah, there is enough potatoes there if you wanted to skin them and make some chips in a chip fryer. So these won't be got rid of just yet. I should keep these just in case you want some chips, you never know. Yeah, I've got some salt. Like I said, it's not going to be too much. I'll just show you a little bit. Just a small bit in the hand like that. Just not a lot. Just take a pinch and sprinkle it over. In fact, I won't even need all this. It's just a couple sprinkles like that, just to add a bit of personal seasoning. And like I say, there's nothing expensive there. It's just a cheap salt that you would have in your cupboard, and it's possibly one that would probably do you 12 months, to be honest with you, because how much salt do people actually put on their food? Very little nowadays anyway. Yeah, this actual pot is obviously a metal one, it's not ceramic, and it's come from another particular cooking device, but it absorbs heat well, it doesn't warp, doesn't distort, it's solid enough for the job. I would like to actually get some proper cast iron cooking pots, but this suffices and it will do what I need it to do. And on top of that, you have to think about how safe this is going to be, because obviously you're going to have to pick it up and put it back onto the wood stove. But as you can see, it's in a nice safe container. I do have a glass lid which will go over the top, but now I'm going to make the stock and get this cooking. To make my stock, I'm just using a cheap stock granules, and I'll start with 2 scoops, putting into a cup. Right, what I'm going to do is start this off, make a nice cupful of stock, and what I'll do is I'll put that in on top of this, and then I'll add the water, I'll stir that up, and then I'll use a fraction more water with the stock cube, put in, do the same method, and then add that. Right, I've got my water. I'll put it over here. I'm doing this all one-handed. Put that back, and in it goes. There. And I'm going to stir this up. Get it nice and stirred up. That's feeling really thick, but I don't mind that. You can always adjust thicknesses with the water to the stock, and you will do as you're cooking it. We like ours a little bit on the thicker side, but that's just personal preference. Right, adding a little bit of water, not much, just enough there. Got that. Bring that over and tip that straight in. Alright, I'm stirring it all in. It's looking nice and thick, it's looking nice. And all I did was put a small bit of water in beforehand, just before I put the stock. Like you said, you make your stock a little bit thicker to allow for the bit of water you put in here. So yeah, that's looking quite nice there now. So basically all I'm going to do is tip this stock pot, and like I said, these are these modern ones that you get. If you didn't have access to any of these, and these are real cheap ones, you just put an extra spoonful of gravy granules in. But I'm feeling posh. Not really, but there you go. So I'm just going to let that dissolve down. I'm going to stir that up, and then I'll just add that to the stew. That's dissolving already. Like I said, you can do it with just gravy granules. Instead of 2, you'd use 3. These supposedly have that little bit more flavour. I'm not a connoisseur or expert on these things. Whether they do or don't, I'm not sure. But anyway, like I say, that's dissolved. And we put that in on top. Now what I'm going to do is give that a stir. Right, that's done. So now it's put back on the wood stove. I've placed it in the middle where most of the heat is. Now what I'm looking for in here, I'll be waiting till I can see this to start to bubble. As soon as it's really bubbling, I shall throttle back the heat using these here. I shall throttle back, and what that will do is just let it simmer. And you will check possibly about every half an hour, just have a look and see how it's doing, and if wet, and basically you're cooking by eye. You know, it will need at least an hour and a half, 2 hours, I would say, just simmering. From there on in, it will be personal choice how well you want it, shall we say, well, stewed, basically, because this is what it is. This is the most basic form of, or one of the most basic form of cookings you can do, a stew. Along with frying something or roasting something, this is possibly the most basic form of cooking you can do. And everybody should have at least this basic skill, which they could apply to electric cookers and gas cookers. So okay, you can see the setup I've got now, and basically I'm just waiting for that to stew itself now. I've cracked the heat back a fair bit, and I'm just allowing it to come to the boil, and I will take it right back so there will not be any flames, in a sense, in that wood burner. It'll just be ticking over and simmering. I've already explained it, you know, hour and a half, 2 hours, but you will have to periodically just have a little check and a stir. As you can see, my wood stove and the pot in question aren't the correct pots. They're not what you should be using, and they weren't designed for it. I have to say, yet again, obviously get the correct stove and correct cooking implements. But, you know, for entertainment purposes, you can see what I'm doing here. And, yeah, it serves us okay, and you know, as you've seen, that actual stew, what we call Cheap Jack stew, is in a sense exactly as the name says on the tin. It's all cheap leftover ingredients or stuff you'd have in the cupboard. Right, the actual fire has actually died right down, which is what I wanted. And as you can see there, whoa, a bit of steam there, I took that lid off. I'll get in closer now. Yeah, it's simmering away there. So yeah, that's what you need to do, and you need to keep checking it. And I say stir it around. Make sure nothing's sticking to the bottom. As you can see, we could thicken that up if we wanted to, but I think this will be fine for us. It's just going to be like a stew. We're going to get some nice French bread to go with it. You can add meat, you can add anything you want to a stew, but like I said in the name of this one, it's Cheap Jack stew. You're just using up leftover vegetables and stock. And if you season it right and everything, it's a nice, filling, hearty, cheap meal. But like you say, you do have the option with a stew to make any recipe you fancy, and in any vein really, and with meat if you feel so inclined to. I do like sometimes chicken or pork in a stew, but like I said, this one here is just a vegetable stew, and we're going to eat this with some nice crusty bread with bread and butter. Right, it's cooked, it's fully done. It's the potatoes are soft, as you can see. You can cut them straight in half with just a spatula, and it's looking really nice. You could have thickened it up a bit more, but Me and the wife will be eating it with a crusty French bit of bread and butter. And we've been out, we've had to do some things with the kids, getting ready to go back to school, haircuts and everything like that. So this just actually is fantastic. Now we can warm up a bowl of this each, some crusty bread and butter, fantastic, one complete meal. And to be honest with you, it's reasonably healthy. It is pretty much just basically stock and vegetables seasoned. Like I said, you could add meat if you wanted to, and sometimes we have done so, but this is just eating up the leftover vegetables and providing us with a meal. The kids, well, kids are kids. I'm sure they'd eat it if they were starving, and indeed they will taste it and have a few mouthfuls, and they do enjoy it to that extent. But kids being kids, you know, sometimes they want something else. But, you know, as an adult, this is perfectly fine eating. And like I said, me and my wife, we will enjoy this evening. And it's waiting for us after doing a full day of activities, and we come back to a wholesome meal. So, in effect, you can see and draw the complete conclusion from the tree I cut down, the standing dead one, or the one that actually went over, and I helped, shall we say, salvage and clear the area up for the community. It's provided me with the heat and the opportunity to provide myself with a meal. Now, you know, this is nothing new, and I've said it before. Our grandparents were cooking in this way, or similar to this sort of style, with wood heat. For generations and since man's conception of cooking over heat, you know, this is how it was kind of done. We've kind of lost touch with it over the years with the convenience of just turning on electric and gas. You have instant heat, it's clean, it's efficient to the point, as long as you have access to it, it's there. But as we've seen with the storms, in this country, the UK, we've had weeks without power in some parts of the country, or at least days, and across the world when there's been storms or natural disasters, you know, you have to have the ability to revert back to some form of basic cooking. The wood stove gives me that, and as you can see, I've cooked a perfectly good stew, and a stew is a basic meal which you can stew anything. You could find like anything in the hedgerows, wild game. You can make a stew out of anything, and it has been done throughout history. Now, you know, I'm not suggesting everybody will and has the opportunity to have a wood stove, and indeed, you know, I'm not suggesting that you're in some way deficient in your lifestyle choices. I'm just showing you as entertainment value how me and my family here can at least put together a rudimentary meal if we don't have power. And indeed, I'll be blatantly honest with you, just using leftover foodstuffs that we have here, we can throw together and make a quick, cheap, easy meal. And, you know, it's cost me nothing really. The food's already been bought. It was going to go to waste. I've used some wood that was there that was basically going to just rot. So, you know, it's a win-win for everybody. So yeah, I'm not trying to teach people to suck eggs, because there's a good vast proportion of the world who are cooking like this on wood heat every day of the week, and will continue to do so for eternity. But I'm just showing you that there is an option for the people that live in UK, shall I say, suburbia, that, you know, these options do still exist out there for people like myself and others. Yeah, so that was just showing you how we make that particular meal, one we call Cheap Jack stew, which I've alluded to why we call it that. So you've seen that, and basically I will probably do some other cooking at some point and show you something a little bit more, shall we say, a little bit more adventurous, but that was just an opening shot at what you can do with a wood stove. So yeah, I'm going to call it a day here, and it's a Friday evening. I'm going to have something to eat with the family, which will be Cheap Jack stew and bread, and I'll probably have a glass of gin and wait for tomorrow because I'm back on shift again. So yeah, this is Andy from Folklore Hiking Sticks, and I'll catch you again.